a situation where he might run across that first stage, and by simply being in that group, he can move from one stage up to another, from not knowing anything about him to now you want to kill him.
Yes.
Is that I said that's a real progression.
And this is what I'm seeing with Donald Trump and his group. See, I don't think anything is wrong with Donald Trump. I think he knows that group is out there, and then when he says that, his polls keep going up and up. So he started using that language over and over again.
Make
that's
that as a
what you're
point.
Seeing
That's a point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. The topic is Acts of Prejudice, Prescription for Racism. And we have with us to talk about Acts of Prejudice and the Prescription for Racism, Dr. EKSanford from Tennessee State University. And so, Dr. Sanford, let's see if we can finish this last segment by having you make some comments in reference to an individual who might be caught within that first act that you're talking about, and as he or she moves up and eventually move to the fifth act in which they are ready to exterminate an individual. Go on, speak to it from that perspective.
And thank you very much. And that is indeed how Dr. Gordon Allport would see it. That first person that might have this feeling or dislike toward another group but wouldn't act on it could be potentially a part of going into membership or just going to a group, and when things are being said, they might listen to it and agree with it and vote for it, but a subgroup of that group might move on to the next level, and then the next level to the next level of physical attack, where they might make a decision to go out and do it. Now, this is where the prescription for racism of those earlier attacks, the listening audience need to understand. When that group of people start to go out and they seek out a group of people, whoever they might be, based on certain physical characteristics or where they might be socially located within a community, that they know they are targeting that group of people, or if in a hiring process they are not allowing a group of people based on the ethnic group that they have checked that they are, or gender that they are, then that's when the racism or the sexism enters into the discussion about the whole prescription of racism within the society in which we live in. Now, when we look in our larger problems of reoccurring patterns of, say, police officers that are disproportionately killing African-American males, I want us to keep in mind this act on prejudice, because I think if we interviewed, say, any of the officers in the rank and file line, all of them would say, well, no, we would not go out and act toward any other citizen in any different way than we would another person. But out of that group, you can have someone that in their private life would avoid, and then in their private life would do some discriminatory acts. And this becomes a part of their subconscious, looking at the social psychology of it. And when they are out in the force, and then when they are out to stop someone, that individual may not be doing anything that is being degrading or not following the rules. Or even if they were not following the rules and you have to shoot them, do you have to shoot to kill, or could you shoot in the leg and they fall down and then they couldn't do anything? But is there something in that physical attack that emerges from how some of the preceding acts of prejudice may have been in the environment as you grew up that might cause you then to shoot to kill, or after you're down to continue to shoot 15 additional times.
And so in a real sense, if you've got a group, hypothetically, of 20 people, and as they move from one stage to another, you might have only, 15 move up to that second stage, and then 10 to that third stage, and 5 to that fourth stage. And that fifth stage, in which there is an idea of extermination, you have only 1 or 2 out of those 20, but all might be considered to be what? Prejudice, but they've moved from one stage to another stage.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And now, as we are seeing this radicalization of other groups that are probably experiencing within the society or system in which we live in, some of those acts of the lesser stage of prejudice, they may then start thinking, how can I get back at that by this physical attack? So, and then I guess my point is, it can go from one ethnic group to the next ethnic group, or I hate to use this word, Uncle Tom, sometimes you can find people within one ethnic group that the dominant group can get another person to act and behave and think and say things in a certain way. I guess you want to say they've been bought out, or they may have assimilated to a certain degree that they may not try to understand that particular ethnic group, although they belong to that ethnic group themselves. However, going back to this issue of the problem that we are seeing in our society today, many people that might be the victims of it are now turning that into another type of act on prejudice and physically attacking. So I hate to date it, but as we have this conversation, there have been many types of attacks that have occurred in America and throughout the other country, and some people in their minds may be acting this thing out in a more physical or to the point of exterminating another group of people, or the idea that another, even entire society, they could, regardless of who is in the building, if they are just called American, they want to get rid of them. So that's an extermination, an act on prejudice as well.
So would you say, Dr. Sanford, that many individuals do have an opportunity? It's really a decision that an individual has to make as to whether he is willing to move from level 1 to level 2 to the final level. That is really an individual's decision, but it's sort of formed by the group itself, by the kind of folks that you're involved with. Would that be a correct assessment of that?
That is very, very correct. And one of the things, since we are in higher education, is to try to have diversity in education, so that that group that's, because of legal segregation hundreds of years ago, things are still pretty much that way today, or people might still be separated and might have those attitudes, that through a system of education, that they will change their attitudes and values in a different way. And we have indeed seen that. We've seen that with the millennials, and how our Supreme Court now allows this discrimination that was going toward gay brothers, lesbian sisters of being married. Now they changed that law because there was a change in people's attitudes that were born in the 80s and the 90s. And so the same thing with the civil rights movement, when there was an act of prejudice, of discrimination, as well as physical attack. With a social movement that went on and on, laws were changed. And now, supposedly, there are improvements to the point that we have a first African-American president, two-term president. So we see change with the whole infusion, but you have to understand that those things are there. And this places someone in a high authority level to have to understand that much of the anti-locution is still very present, that first level within our society, of people just feeling in a very prejudiced way. And you can see within the political campaign that's going on at the very present time, when a person figures out there's a whole group of people, regardless of their education, economic status, they might feel depressed or suppressed, and they might start thinking in a way, and then they go out and they meet and they rah-rah about it. So you can see some of the people with their flags up and everything that might belong
ready to move to the next section.
That's
next step of it. And so it's a thing of progression, you know, and if a person can exclude himself or get away from that kind of thing, he won't have an opportunity to progress. But as long as he is involved in the middle of it, he goes up with the rest of the group. Is that what we're saying?
That's what we're saying. And we think we have a better America with more diversity, because we are strength in numbers, strength in everybody being along and getting along. And we have the institution of religion that's supposed to help everybody have this type of ethic about ourselves. But the question becomes, as Max Weber would say in his classic book, the Protestant ethic in the spirit of capitalism. How does capitalism prevent us from being able to get along?
And so in a real sense, diversity is the most important element in terms of bringing people together, and more diversified a group is, then the less likely they are to be able to move from, they might move from level 1 to level 2, but if there's quite a bit of diversity, they're not going to go up to level 5.
That's right. And intellectual diversity. You can live in another area, but intellectually you have to understand about the culture of other people, and then that would let you have a different level of respect.